mean, my ex and I, was still Magnolia. We broke up. He went to rehab. I had to like pick up the pieces and go out on the Reba tour within like a week of him going there and us breaking up. And it's like, I had to do this whole entire tour, in arenas, and I had to go do meet and greets every night. And it's like, I was literally dying inside, but I was somehow able to push through and do that. And I would have, if you'd have told me that, I would have thought, oh no, I would need like, a month in bed to deal with this. But it's surprising, just like, the, you find your inner strength,
We have the beautiful, amazing Meghan Linsey on. A lot of you guys know her from The Voice. If you're like me and my family, we watch The Voice all the time. She was on season 8, a runner-up. She is just such a light of a person. Go follow her on social media. She'll keep you laughing, but also entertained. She has such an exciting announcement tomorrow with her next single coming out. And today, we have the honor of her being on, and we're going to talk about confidence. Now, the reason I really wanted Meghan on, everybody, as you know, is because here at Made to Shine, we have this mission to remind everyone that your ministry is in every aspect of your life. It's the way you shine your light at your job, at your school, at your interviews, in your conversations, at the bar with friends. It's the way you just live your life. And Meghan, you just seem from afar to do that so beautifully. And even in the few moments we've talking beforehand, up close, I can attest to that. So Meghan, thank you so much for being on Made to Shine today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Awesome.
And so we are going to be talking about confidence today, but before we dive in, we've got to start with the way I start every single Made to Shine interview, which is, what is your favorite quote and why?
Oh my goodness.
I didn't tell her this before, everybody, so this
anything now. Oh my God. Hold on. Let me think about this for a minute. Oh no, I can't think of anything. This is terrible.
Our favorite, like most meaningful song, since you are a singer.
Most meaningful song? Lord, this is so bad. I should have prepared. I'm like the worst right now. My brain
this
is not.
How I like it from the heart, off the cuff.
This is how you like. You know what? I will give you a quote. I think I can't remember how it exactly goes, but the one about like how you treat the wait staff is like a reflection of your character, I don't know what the exact quote is, but there's a quote about like how you treat the wait staff, the janitor, like the people, the service industry, I feel like is a real testament to who you are as a human and what's inside. So that's probably, I live by that motto. So
I love that. Did you ever work in the service industry? Does that mean something to you? Okay.
Yeah, I worked downtown Nashville for a long time. I hosted karaoke. I bartended for a while. I worked as a waiter at one point. So I've done service industry for sure.
I was in a lot of my research around you. I saw you were a karaoke host at Lonnie's.
Yeah. I worked a few places downtown, but Lonnie's was like my first job in Nashville.
Okay. So, take us back, because right now, we're talking to Meghan Linsey, who's on The Voice, and she was just on the Kelly Clarkson show, and she's got a single coming out tomorrow and like all this jazz. But take us back to the karaoke host at Lonnie's, and prior to all of these accolades, did you know, like, was this your dream? Was this what you wanted that entire time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started singing like as a kid, obviously, just like super young and in church, and I had a band. But yeah, I started super young, and then I started writing songs in high school, and I knew when I started writing songs that I felt like Nashville would be a good place for me. And so I started traveling to Nashville as a teenager to write. And my mom would come up with me during the summer. My mom and dad would bring me and let me do that, which was really cool, and play some little shows and stuff. And then when I turned 18, I just knew that that's what I should do. I should have to go to Nashville, and it was hard. I mean, I remember being like 18 and I had just like gotten this job at Lonnie's, and I mean, at that time I was like probably crying myself to sleep every night just because I was like, oh, I don't know anybody. My parents aren't here. Like it was scary to move that far away completely alone, in the beginning. And so I think I just knew like you have to have the guts to just go for it even if you're scared. And I was like, okay, I have to do this. I was terrified. I was terrified to move here when I first moved, but
That I love that because I don't think people talk about that enough. Like in going
yeah,
for dreams, there's an ingredient of straight terror that is
it
included in the recipe of going for it. And I think, and this is kind of what when we initially talked, it's so many women, especially, they get stuck in that I'm going to go for it once I feel ready and once I
yeah.
feel confident enough. And
Hmm.
I guess like taking us back to those nights you were crying yourself to sleep and there was no external evidence that you necessarily made the right decision yet, right?
Yeah.
What did confidence look like to you in that season before you had all these accolades to kind of back up that you made the right move?
It was hard, I think there's always like some level of terror, as we were saying, like in anything that you do that's worth it. Like there has to be a jump. There has to be a moment where you're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be doing this and I'm scared to do it, but you have to trust. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I was terrified, but I was also like, okay, I'm just trusting. I'm trusting God. I'm trusting this process. I would just kind of sit in it, and my confidence wasn't great back then. I mean, it's definitely like improved over the years. I was so young. I think when you're that young, it's confidence is something you have to build. But yeah, I just had to trust, and that's a hard thing to do sometimes, to just jump in and blindly and not really know and just like pray that it's the right thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people they think one, you have to feel ready to make that move. And then once they do, they assume it's going to be this linear line of success. It's like, okay, I made the jump and now God's going to bless me because I'm walking out on water and I'm doing
Yeah,
the moves. And it's like, that's not always the road to success. So take me through. So you did this, you made this leap, like you're going to Nashville, you're alone, you're scared, you're
yeah.
terrified. What was the progression of to where you are now? What were the ups and downs?
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, it's so not linear. It's so it's like up and down and up and down. My whole journey has been. But initially I was just like trying to go to school. I was at Belmont my first semester, and I was also trying to like balance working and like figuring out how to break into the industry. And I had some really good opportunities, and most of those just came from being like being in the places, where the people are, and like meeting different. It was all through relationships, and I don't think anything's by chance at all. But it was crazy the people I would meet working downtown at Lonnie's, and then they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to sing on this thing I'm doing?" Or they'd have famous country singers would come in and hang out. So I got to meet a lot of cool people that way, and I ended up dropping out of school. But for me, it just felt like I was like, okay, this is just like the next step, because it was kind of getting in the way of me really I was already kind of doing things at that point. It was like I was getting calls and I was doing things. And so it was like, okay, well, I probably need to not be going to school every day, and I need to be focusing on being in the studio and writing songs and networking. And so I really threw myself into that. And then I met my ex-partner. I was in a band called Steel Magnolia, and we met downtown in a karaoke bar when I was working, and hit it off. We started dating, we started writing songs together, and then we ended up auditioning for a TV show called Can You Duet, which was on CMT.
Mhm.
And at the time, we were like trying to do an indie rock thing, actually. Like it wasn't even a country thing we were doing. And we just got a call. I had this friend who was a producer. And he's like, "Hey, we're doing this show. Would you want to come downtown to audition?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" I think my whole life has been a series of me just being like, why not? Let's see what happens, and just kind of showing up. And we ended up, obviously we got on the show and we ended up winning the show and won a record deal. So it was just like, it was a crazy ride from there. I think I was like 20, but from the time I moved to Nashville, I was like 18, and then when I got my record deal, I was 23. So
Wow.
it was
And it
wild.
sounds like, so you created Steel Magnolias with your ex-partner. You met all of these connections working as a karaoke host at Lonnie's. I'm sure
Yeah.
it wasn't like you took the job at Lonnie's to make those connections. You were probably
No.
just trying to get a job, right? I think so many young people, they almost want to bypass that seed planting phase. They just
Mm-hmm.
they're so forward, and granted, I think social media does this. Like, we see everyone's highlight reel. So
Yeah.
we don't see the Meghan working at Lonnie's, and we didn't see kind of the stages to what we see today.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer, like, God takes us through places to put tools in our tool belt that we're going to need for the next places he has for us. So
Absolutely.
other than just these connections, what kind of tools would, for lack of a better word, did God put in your tool belt that you now are like, I'm so glad I had that time as a waitress, as a karaoke host, because I need this skill now in my current day?
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of it was just people skills, like interacting with people, being able to talk to anybody, because it's such a, it's such a service industry job. So you're constantly just meeting new people and having to start conversations, and then also just being able to do things off the cuff. Like it was weird because I had played in bands for so long that I had gotten so reliant on other musicians on stage when I was performing. And then I moved to Nashville, and it was almost like I felt like I was taking a little bit of a step down to go into a karaoke bar and work. But at the same time, it forced me, like, I'm the only one up there. I have to entertain the crowd. Like, I have to be able to talk. I have to be able to do all of this. And there's nobody else on stage, you know? And so I learned a lot, I think, from that experience, just about being able to entertain a crowd like a one woman show, you know?
Man, and I'm sure that's so, especially with what you do today and like how you
Mhm.
connect to people through your music. I think,
Mhm.
if you look at music as the vehicle you use to connect with people, everyone has a vehicle. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're in marketing or you're in sales or you're a student, like, we all have these vehicles we connect to people. What would you say is the power of going through a time where you're anonymous, so to speak, like you're not on stages, you're not, people don't know your name? That's
Mhm.
so important for to get to the place to where you are. Like, people do know your
Yeah.
name and they do know who you are. What's the power of anonymity that season?
I think you just, it's all seasons of life, right? So like I obviously, like, I was just the karaoke host and the bartender, but there were opportunities within that to serve and to give back. And so, like, for me, like, I worked downtown, and there was a lot of homeless people, and so I was always like the one bringing them clothes and food and trying to do things to like give back, because that kind of became it really became my community. It's like, yeah, I'm working in this like hole in the wall bar in downtown Nashville, but if you just look around, like, there's so much opportunity to like give back and to serve. And so, like, I mean, I was doing that, I mean, way before I had any kind of a platform. So I think it really set me up, like, when I did have a platform, it's like I knew where my heart was, and I knew what my, you know how I could serve, I guess.
Yeah. And I think too, we connect through our vulnerabilities. Like, we
Hmm.
connect through our scars. And I'm sure, as so, like, you write music and I write books. And I know for me, like, it's the seasons where I have hurt the most. Like, you said, you were in Nashville by yourself. There was a season I lived in Charleston for a little bit by myself, and that was hard. I was alone a lot, and it was, lots of tears going to sleep and just like, what's this all for? And but
Yeah.
it's those feelings that still carry with me today that I think about when I'm writing. I think
Yeah.
about that girl. I think
Well,
about
it
the
gives you
tears that she cried.
that perspective. It's like you can empathize. You have to be. I mean, you have to like go through it and experience and witness people going through it in order to, like, I think, resonate with it. And so for me, it was like, okay, I know what it's like to work in the service industry. I know what it's like to not be able to pay my rent. I know what it's like to have to heat my apartment with my oven. I know, it's like I had to go through all of that to be able to really have empathy. And I think, I mean, I probably had it anyways, but going through that, it just makes it, I don't know, it just opens you up, it breaks you in a way, and that's like in a good way.
If if, you were what, 23 when you moved to Nashville, or 23 when
I
you
was
got your
18.
18? Okay.
Yeah.
If you were to go back to 18-year-old Megan and tell
hmm
her your story and how it all turned out and how you got to where you are, would she still say yes to the journey?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think definitely. I think like I didn't know I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I had no idea. And I see now looking back at like just all the things that I had to go through, there's just been so much. It really shaped me. It made me who I am. I don't think I would take any of it back. I mean, it was really hard and there are some things I'm like, "Oh, I wish I'd have done that differently." But at the same time, I'm like, "Well, I wouldn't be writing the songs I'm writing now, or I wouldn't be able to like connect with people the way I'm able to connect now." So, it all serves a purpose, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I so believe that. I think too, like the scripture reminds us, like God is a lamp unto our feet. Like He gives us one step at a time. And I think a lot of times it's because, if we do have that whole picture before we set out, we might not say yes, or we might not say yes
Yeah.
as confidently, because it's like, oh man, if I know I'm gonna have to heat my apartment with my oven, I don't know if this is, like things of that
Yeah.
nature. And so that's why I think it's so powerful. Just like for me, confidence comes from just saying yes to that next right thing. Like,
Yep.
what is the next, just that one, not 10 things, one thing, what's that next right thing?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, as you look back on that journey and your journey that you're still writing, what have
Mhm.
been things that have surprised you about yourself?
I think just my resilience, you know, like if you'd have told me like the things that I was gonna have to go through, I mean, my ex and I, was still Magnolia. We broke up. He went to rehab. I had to like pick up the pieces and go out on the Reba tour within like a week of him going there and us breaking up. And it's like I had to do this whole entire tour, in arenas, and I had to go do meet and greets every night. And it's like I was literally dying inside, but I was somehow able to push through and
Mm,
do that. And I would have, if you'd have told me that, I would have thought, oh no, I would need like, a month in bed to deal with this. But
yeah.
it's surprising, just like, the, you find your inner strength, and, I think, there's just been so many things. That's just one example, but, I think that would be the biggest thing is just resilience and staying power and like, being willing to like put myself out there time and time again because it really is a game of getting thrown on the ground, being stomped down and then getting back up, and
Mhm.
be trying to find the confidence to keep going, and I don't know. I definitely have surprised myself many times with that.
Yeah, it sounds like this relationship between resilience and confidence. Like it sounds like
Mhm.
getting knocked down in your eyes was a lot of what built that confidence. Whereas I think that for most people, we're afraid situations like that are going to destroy our confidence and challenge
Yeah.
our confidence. But I love the saying, you can either break apart or break open. And
Mhm.
I think when we do break, we have that choice to break open, and it kind of introduces us to a level of confidence we never had prior.
Right. Yeah, I would have never gotten to that place had I not gone through all of those things, I don't think. I think I had to go through some things like that just to know myself, just to know
Mhm.
who I am and what I'm capable of and like and to be confident in like the person that God made me because it's like going through all of that it would have been like really easy to just lay down, but I was like, "You know what? Like I am a child of God. I do I found my strength and my confidence in that. That was a
Mhm.
big part of it, was just like trusting. There's so much trust that has to happen and it's so scary, but it's like, that's I mean, sometimes that's all you have. It's like, okay, all I can do is just trust.
Who would you said, having confidence in the person God created you to be. How would you describe the person God created you to be?
Oh Lord. I mean, definitely like I feel like I'm very I care a lot. I care deeply about others. I'm very empathetic, service oriented. Um, I just I care a lot about the people that I love, and I just care about a lot about people in general and animals, and I just have a big heart, So I think that's a big part of it.
With your music, you all of your songs, there's such meaning behind them. I love, for me, I love music that I can connect to on a heart level. Like, sure,
Yeah.
a catchy beat is great, but lyrics
Yeah.
that make you think, almost lyrics like if the music, the tunes, I don't know, I'm not a musician, so whatever the music in the background, if it wasn't there, if I just read these lyrics,
Yeah.
they would make me want to cry, or they would make me want to think about my life. And your music does that, it really makes you think. So take us through the art of one, like feeling what you feel and translating that into lyrics on a page, and then having the confidence in being vulnerable enough with people to do that. Because once it's out there, it's open for judgment, and that comes
Mhm.
from deep work in your heart. So talk us through that.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, and especially in the last like probably 5 years, I write differently. Like I write more from my heart, and I'm not as concerned about trends or what's happening on the radio or trying to chase something anymore. I think I did that. There were times in my life when I was doing that just because I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm on a record label. They want this song that sounds like this, or, so much of my career was that. And so I mean, definitely in the last 5, 6 years, I've really just surrendered to writing from my heart. And so much of what I'm writing now, I feel like a lot of my songs, this is really funny, but I write in the bathtub. Um,
I love that.
it's a space though where I really can just chill and I'm not thinking about anything else. And I do feel like especially like the single that I'm getting ready to put out, and I had this song called "The Morning" that I put out a little while back, but very, very much me just open book, spilling it all out, like very vulnerable. And honestly, I felt like I wasn't even writing it. Like it was definitely like coming from a higher power. I was just literally just writing. It would just float out of me a lot of those lyrics. And so um I think you just have it's another like lesson in just trust and surrender and just letting things be what they're going to be, because it's like I don't know, those songs just kind of came out and I was like, okay, well, this is what it's supposed to be, and not overthinking it, or like that's what a lot of what I used to do with writing is I would write something and then I would think it has to be so perfect. And I think what makes it great is when it's just real and vulnerable.
That is so funny you say that. I literally have on my desk right here a sign that says real over perfect. Because when I write, it's the same exact thing. You know, I'm such a someone once said, like, you're most qualified to serve the person you once were. So when I'm
Mhm.
writing, I think about that little girl that was insecure and not confident, and didn't feel good enough for things and opportunities. And it's funny, when I'm trying to when I think about what others are going to think of it, it is so freaking hard to write a chapter. It's so hard. It feels forced. But when I think about just being real, it's exactly as you said. It flows. I mean, it's the most fun, easy writing you can imagine because it comes from that higher source. And I know your single coming out tomorrow, Everything is
Mhm.
Fine, which I'm so
Yeah.
excited for. You mentioned that a lot of it had to do or came from a place around your mental health and like digging
Mhm.
deep in that. And so kind of talk us through the framework of that. Like what inspired this song, the message you hope people take from this that kind of came from what you went through as you were writing it.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote it, I was just like, I think I was just in a really dark place. Like I was struggling with depression, and I've always been like the person in like my family, my friend group that's always like I feel like I'm the strong one, like I'm the one holding it all together. I'm the one making sure everybody's okay. And so I never really like allowed myself to worry about me. And I think I got to the point where I got so broken down, and I was so anti any kind of medicine. I was like, oh, it makes me weak. Like I can't be on meds and all this stuff. And I finally just broke down and I was like, you know what? I really need something. I have a problem. Like I really need to figure this out. And but at the time I wasn't medicated yet. And I was just writing in the bathtub, and I was just pouring out everything I was feeling at the time. And the world was crazy. It's like we were dealing with COVID and lockdown and, just all this political stuff. Just everything was just so negative in the news. And I was just I think all of us were feeling all of that. And then on top of it, like it just was making it worse, with the depression stuff. And so, um, I lost my train of thought, but that was kind of where that song originated. And then, um, yeah, I don't know where I was
No,
going with that.
I'm thinking because I think so many people can relate to the I'm always the strong one.
Yeah,
I feel like for myself too, I wouldn't necessarily call myself the mom of my friend group and my friends, but
yeah,
I'm always the happy one and the joyful one. And I remember growing up, I almost made it my identity to like I put my worth in making others happy. And so I wouldn't let myself be sad because I felt like I wasn't doing my job. And
yeah,
to make others joyful. And I too hit that point of like I'm not happy. Like I can't do this anymore. And so as
yeah,
you said, like hitting that point of I guess talk us through what did that point feel like for you of, this is I've hit my breaking point. I can't keep being the strong one. I don't feel strong. Because you
yeah.
carry that identity around for so long. What was that? What did that feel like when you're like, I can't do this anymore?
It gets to the point, and I think it's important for us to talk about because this is literally Suicide Prevention Month, right? And and I've seen so many people that I love go struggle with this, and I've known people who have committed suicide, and it's just such a sad thing. But it's isolating. I think when you feel like you're not allowed to be sad in public, and you're really like you're sad behind the scenes. And so for me, that's kind of where I was. I was crying in the bathtub, by myself. And I'm like, I got to get a hold of this. And I think that's part of the reason when I started to write the chorus, it was like, I was writing, what do I need to hear right now? And the chorus is like, the whole world is burning, but everything is fine. Don't let it break you and steal all of your shine. Um, and those words were so comforting to me at the time. And I know where they came from because at the time I was too broken to even write that, but it just spilled out on the paper. And it was a comfort thing for me when I wrote that down. I was like, somebody needs to hear this. And
Mhm.
it's important for me to talk about my mental health because if you just look at my Instagram, I look really happy and like I have everything together and I'm not being completely honest. It's not the whole picture. And I think so many of us are that way, obviously on social media where everything's just perfect. And um, I really have gotten to the point in my career too as an artist where I'm like, I have this platform, like I have to be honest and I have to make people realize that they're not alone. And so that's become a really important message for me, and especially with the song coming out is you're not alone. We've all felt like this, and there's hope.
Yeah. And, all that to say, I'm such a big believer fear grows in the dark. And when like those thoughts, the enemy, it gets us in isolation when we're alone and we're that thought, that belief, that false belief, we are the only ones in the entire world feeling this. I know
Right.
in my own dark moments, that is the record playing in my head. It's like
Yeah.
there's no one else that can possibly feel this low or feel this sad.
Yeah.
What is so I know you as a artist put a lot of that into your art. Let's
Mhm.
take someone that isn't a musician, isn't a writer, when they're in that moment, when they're in there, your bathtub moments, or for me, it's my closet moments. Like I actually write a lot of my books in the closet. I don't know
Yeah.
why. It's a lot. It's very grounding for me. Um, but when they're feeling that way, that there's no one else that can possibly feel this way, what is the practical thing for them to do there that maybe you've done other than write?
I think obviously like having faith, having praying, like having that meditation, prayer, whatever it is for you, like having that is important. I think I find comfort in listening to music myself. Like it's not even just like me writing my own songs. It's like sometimes I just have to put on music and listen to it, and that becomes like a spiritual thing for me. obviously there's a lot of resources out there. But I just feel like for me, for me, it always comes back to music. Like I'm always inspired by music, whether I'm writing it or listening to it, or, you know, a song will come on that I just need to hear at the time, and that really comforts me.
I love that because it has
Yeah.
to do with inputs. And I think sometimes people get overwhelmed. I love that so much because a lot of times the advice you hear is you need to do this and you need to sign up for this. But sometimes it's not about the output. If you're in that place, it's about your input. What are you listening to? Like
Yeah.
practically, are you scrolling mindlessly on Instagram when you're in that dark moment and looking at how everyone else isn't in the dark moment? Or
Right.
are you turning on a song that connects with
Yeah.
you on a soul level? Are you calling a friend that can speak life into you, getting out your Bible? Like, what are you doing? Um,
And
so,
I
so
think too, it's like with depression, it's like you almost have to take small steps. It's like, okay, like I just need to like get out of the house and go on a walk. It's like if I just lay here, this is just gonna grow. So it's like, what's the like, it's sometimes you can't think 10 steps ahead, and sometimes you can't take a big step. So it's like, okay, what's a little thing that I can do that's gonna make me feel better? Like I know I need to go pet my cat or feed my cat. Like that makes me feel calm. So it's like finding just the little things that you can like do, and it's easy, and it does, it gives you purpose.
yeah. And I know that's so hard because we live in a world that all the big steps are the things that we see. We see everyone else taking like massive moves and doing big things. And so
Yeah.
taking those small steps requires a huge dose of humility and grace to say,
Yeah.
best thing I did today was I went on a 10-minute walk. And that
Yeah.
was monumental for me today. Whereas
Yeah.
someone else, it might have been, I did a amazing, I just launched this awesome course, but it's just a matter of like, where are you and having the humility to identify that.
Right.
So gosh, I love that. And I know we're coming up on time here. Last couple of questions, I guess to round out this part of the conversation, talk like what is the most important thing to you around confidence, around giving yourself grace in dark times, around reminding yourself who you are in God that we haven't talked about that you would want to say to an 18 to 25-year-old?
I think it's really just about, for me, just through all of the ups and downs, it's always been about showing up. Like showing up even when I don't feel it, even when I'm like, I could go back to bed right now, but I know I should probably be here. You know what I mean? And so it's like I think it's following and trusting your gut, the Holy Spirit. There's that, and then there's also just like I've been in Nashville since 2004. Like I've literally lived here for, what is it, 19 years, and I've just never given up. And there are so many times I could have given up. I mean, like I had a million reasons to move home, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay. I'm just gonna see what happens. And I've always stayed and I've always shown up. Um, and even and through every season when I'm not my best, when I've, whatever it is, I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I've whatever, maybe I'm not feeling my most confident, but it's like it's just this, I think it's staying power and showing up. I really do.
Staying power. I love that. I mean, that's a whole vibe right there because I feel like we live in such a world, especially with this younger generation. They want things to happen like yesterday.
Yeah, I
And
know.
they think their dreams are supposed to go in the microwave for 15 seconds and come out perfect later. But God doesn't work like that. And so showing up, continuing to show up, even when you don't feel like that. Oh my gosh, I love that. All right, final question. You probably heard before the question, like, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self? I'm going to mix it up on you. I'm going to say, what advice would 10-year-old Meghan Linsey give current day Meghan?
Oh man. I mean, it all, I mean, it's crazy, but it does all come back to confidence, because I feel like as a kid, you couldn't tell me anything, right? Like I was just like, I had so much like energy, and I was just like bopping around, and you're so like, you live so in the moment, and you don't worry about what other people think as a kid. And I think that so many of us, like, we go through all of these things and we learn all of these things, and it's almost like you have to have a point in your life where you have an unlearning, and you get to the point where it's like, okay, I need to get back to my childlike self, um, to find my confidence again. So yeah, I think, and I've gone through that process. I feel like I've definitely learned and unlearned, and I'm still unlearning. Trying to figure out like, okay, who am I at the core? You just have to take the layers off and, you know, find yourself that way.
If you were to take the layers off, so to speak, of current day Meghan, how would you talk about her?
Oh man, I deal with this. So I have a trainer. I've been working out with a trainer, and she's like a body positive trainer, and she's always like, while I'm working out, she makes me say something nice about myself because I am the hardest person on myself. Like I am a perfectionist. I do want to, I want everything to be right and perfect, and I'm really hard on myself when it comes to just physical appearance. And it's still, I'm 37. Like I was hoping I'd outgrow that, and it's something that I think becomes ingrained in us, especially as young girls and women, and growing up with social media and TV, and and I can't even imagine being a teenager now, how much worse it's gotten. But yeah, it's just I've had to unlearn a lot of that stuff, and try to love myself through all the seasons, because we change, we get older, our bodies change. Like we're not going to be young forever. You gain weight, you lose weight, you're not perfect, and that's part of life. It's really just, it's part of the journey. And I think that that's a big part of what we were talking about earlier. It's just like, it's not about like, oh, I'm going to be this big superstar. It's about this whole journey that happens on your way there. Like
Mm,
that's what life is. This is all we have, and so just learning to embrace every day, every moment. And that was one thing. I was on The Voice. I know we didn't even get into that, but like when I was on The Voice, I was on Pharrell's team, and then I got stolen to Blake's team. But the one thing I noticed, they're both so different and both amazing humans, but the one thing that was the common denominator between them is when you're talking to them, when you're working with them, they're nowhere else. They're right there with you. And
wow.
so I do think that that is a big proponent for success, is just being present and living in the moment, and just allowing yourself to be where you are.
Hmm. Oh, I love that. With yourself and with others.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you to come up with positive things to say in those workouts?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't like it. I have to like make myself go, okay, like yeah, I'll come up, I'll be like, I'll just say something silly because I'm like, I get uncomfortable, I'm learning to not do that to myself, and I'm trying to love myself at, you know, my age now and where I'm at, because it's important. It's like
It's
this
so
is the
important.
body I have. This is who I am,
Yeah.
this is who God made me. And so you have to learn to love yourself and talk positively to yourself, which is
It's so
hard
true.
for me.
Oh yeah, well, and it's part of that unlearning. I know I work with some younger kids, and I ask them questions all the time, like say something great about yourself, and they could spit out like six things. And I'm over there. It's hard for me too to say great
Yeah.
things about myself, and I just think that's part of that unlearning you were talking about. And it sounds like you've just had great experiences through The Voice, and even just being a karaoke host, and then Can
Yeah.
You Do It, and like this whole journey. It's ironically, in a way, it's coming back to you, into who you
Yeah.
are, and
Yeah.
who kind of unlearning who you never were, right? It's that
Yeah.
unbecoming to become who you always were.
Yeah. It's crazy. But
It's
you
exciting.
go through, when you're going through that though too, it's like being on a record label, and going through like just the whole like media training and the development of who you are as an artist. You have so many people telling you who you are, or who they want you to be, or what song they want you to put out, or what your messaging should be. And so and I feel like I've had some trauma from that, just trying to figure out, okay, like I can't. I have to figure out who I am, what my message is, without everyone else telling me what it is.
Mm. Yeah, and that takes confidence to be able to stand up for that in a world that just wants to mold you into their version of Play-Doh they want you to be, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Well, Meghan, it was such a treat having you on. You have
Oh,
such a
thank
beautiful
you.
spirit, and it's so amazing to see that shine through in all you do. So, Everything is fine. Dropping tomorrow. What are the details around that? Where do you want people to go? Where can people find you? All the jazz.
So if you follow me on Instagram, it's at Meghan Linsey. But I have a link in my bio to the song. It's literally on every platform. It'll be on every platform, Spotify, Apple Music, all the things. I have a really awesome music video that's going to be coming out too in a couple weeks. But yeah, I'm just really excited about the song, and I really hope it resonates with people, and I hope that it touches lives, because I think that it's a really important message.
I'm so excited. Meghan, thank
Me
you.
too.
Thank you for being on Made to Shine.
Yeah, thank you.